This is the Breaking Up with Binge Eating podcast, where every listen moves you one step closer to complete food freedom. Hosted by me, Georgie Fear, and my team at Confident Eaters. If you've been listening to this series, you may be thinking, okay, I understand why binges and emotional eating incidents happen. I see the pressure. I get how food became relief for me. And then the urge hits. Suddenly, your body feels keyed up. Your mind narrows. There's a pull toward food that feels urgent, convincing, and really hard to argue with. It's like you've been swept up in a strong current and your feet aren't touching the bottom anymore. In that moment, insight alone isn't enough. So today's episode is about what to do when the urge has shown up. Not how to prevent urges forever, and not how to make yourself never want food for emotional reasons. This is about how to respond in a way that reduces escalation instead of making things worse. Here's the first thing I want you to know because it changes everything that comes. An urge is not an order, it's just a signal. Urges are information about the pressure, need, or vulnerability in your system. They're not proof that you have to act, and they're definitely not proof that you've failed or done something wrong. The mistake most people make is trying to make that urge go away as fast as possible. They fight it, argue with it, shame themselves for having it, or give in immediately because resisting feels so unbearable. All of those responses tend to increase pressure. Instead, the goal in the moment is much simpler. We want to keep the urge from escalating. You don't have to win or make a perfect choice. You're just trying to avoid pouring gasoline on the fire, because the fire will burn itself out as long as you don't give it more fuel. So, what is urge fuel? Escalation happens when you tell yourself you shouldn't be feeling this way, when you label the urge as dangerous or unacceptable, when you think, if I start eating, I won't stop, or when you jump straight into all or nothing thinking. It also can lead to escalation if you start planning where and when you might get binge foods, or even debating if just one more time is actually okay. Those thoughts do not reduce urges, they actually increase and strengthen them. So, the first skill here is a mindset shift. Instead of asking, how do I stop these from coming? Try asking, how do I ride this out without making it any worse? That question alone often brings the pressure down a notch. Now, let's get even more practical. When an urge hits, most people feel like they have only two options: I fight the urge or I give in. I want you to imagine a third option, and that's coexist with the urge. The first step to doing that is just slowing down, take a pause. The idea is simply creating a small space where your nervous system can settle enough for choice and rationality to re enter the picture. That pause might be 60 seconds. It might be 5 slow breaths, counting to 10, or sitting down instead of eating while standing. It doesn't require the urge to disappear, and it doesn't require you to make any long term decision. It just slows the moment down. Slowing down matters because urgency thrives on speed. And here's something important: if during that pause you decide to eat, that's allowed and okay. Pausing is not a trick to keep you away from eating. It's a way to eat with more awareness and less autopilot, which by itself reduces the likelihood of escalation. Another helpful support you can use in the moment is changing context. Urges often intensify when we're standing in the kitchen, scrolling on our phone, or sort of half checked out. Sitting down, putting food onto a plate, moving to a different room, or turning off one source of stimulation can bring just enough grounding to keep your system online. Some of my clients stay upstairs in their homes or in their bedrooms and they watch TV or they lay down when they have urges. It's really tough to ride out an urge facing down your refrigerator. Once you have paused and, if applicable, changed the context, I want to suggest you coexist with the urge like it's not interesting at all, like it's a boring houseplant. Turn on some music, open a book, text someone, move those clothes from the washer to the dryer. You're welcome. In short, don't give the urge your attention. It's going to weaken and it's going to die off, starved of your attention. Kind of like what I routinely do to houseplants, actually. Anyway, language also matters. If your inner voice sounds like, oh no, not again, this is terrible, this is a really bad urge, that language is going to increase the pressure. Try something more neutral and accurate instead, like, I'm having an urge right now. Something in me wants relief. Or, this is uncomfortable, but it's temporary and not dangerous. Neutral language helps us keep the thinking part of our brains engaged. I also want to clarify this: eating during an urge is not a failure. Sometimes it's the most regulated option available. What often matters, more than whether you eat, is how you eat. You can have an urge and then go on to eat seated, paying attention and checking in partway through, and actually not end up binging. All of those mindful steps, anything that brings your awareness to a higher level, will prevent the eating escalating into something that feels out of control. And if you do end up eating more than you wanted to, that's just more information. You don't need to compensate and you don't need to restrict later. Those responses increase pressure and make the next urge stronger, and we don't want that. The most stabilizing next step after urge driven eating is boring but effective: regular meals, hydration, rest, and curiosity about what your system needed. Responding differently to urges is a skill, not a personality trait. You build it through repetition and practice. Each time you pause for even a few seconds, or you choose neutral language, or you reduce escalation by a small amount, you're teaching your nervous system something new. You're teaching it, I can have an urge and still stay in control. That's the skill we're building. So this week, don't make it a courtroom, don't make it a test. When the urge shows up, start with one question: what would keep this from escalating right now? Maybe that's a pause. Maybe it's leaving the kitchen. Maybe it's eating in a more regulated way. You're not trying to be perfect. You're just trying to teach your system that an urge can be present and you can still have some choice. I'm with you as you practice. If you want more support between episodes, especially if it helps to hear what this looks like in real life, I have a paid subscription called All Access. It includes recorded sessions with my clients, shared with their permission, so you can hear the actual conversations that happen in the moment. What people say when the urge hits, how we reduce pressure, and what we move on to practice next. It's about $5 a month. You can join at georgiefear.com/podcast or subscribe right inside Apple Podcasts. In the next episode, we'll zoom out and talk about how stability reduces how often these urges show up in the first place. I look forward to it. Thank you for listening. I'm glad you're here.